trying to give our centers updates as that new law is coming out, as it's being published, as we get new advice, which can be very frustrating. So I'm in this fight with you guys. So that's who I am. That's what I do. I provide legal advice to our centers. And I want to go ahead and introduce Miss Jillian from United Way.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just a reminder, we are recording this session as a learning tool for folks who aren't able to join us today. My name is Jillian Delis Reyes, and I'm the Director of Education and Youth Initiatives for the United Way of Southeast Louisiana. And I have the privilege of working with Rebecca Holmes at Loyola University College of Law with this program. I'm going to go into a little bit about the background of the program, how we got here today, and this opportunity. But before we launch into that, I want to give the platform over to y'all to introduce yourselves, your name, the name of your center, and the center and the parish in which you operate. And I'm going to just name someone I see from the participant list. And when that person's done, if you could pass the baton off to someone else you see on the list. Miss Smith Price, may I call on you?
Yeah, hi. My name is Julie Smith Price. I am director at Newcomb Children's Center, Tulane University. And I received the invitation. I'm not sure if this is a meeting because I understand it to be a loan and we're not necessarily applying for a loan. I just wanted to be sure if that was what this is about. Because if it's a loan, we're not gonna, the university's not gonna participate in that. But if it were a grant, then
so this is not a loan program, but what we are trying to do is help centers that have received PPP2 or second draw funds.
Okay.
Their compliance with that to achieve maximum forgiveness. That is our goal.
Yeah, and we'll go into more detail about that in just a moment.
Great. Thank you.
And I see Miss Newman is just added to the chat. She doesn't have audio on her computer, but thank you. So happy to have you, Miss Newman. She's from Loyola University Wayland's Children's Center. She doesn't have audio on her computer, but thank you for joining us. And then I think our last participant this morning is Mr. and Mrs. Eichhorn. If you could just say your name, the parish in which you operate, and the name of your center, if you are able to unmute yourself. Oh, okay. They also don't have camera or audio. No worries. The director of St. Christopher in Jefferson Parish. Awesome. So happy to have y'all here this morning. Wonderful. Okay, so we have infants and 2-year-olds. Okay, great. Awesome. Well, so I just want to give you a little background, of why we're here today. So the United Way of Southeast Louisiana has been a proponent and advocate for early education in general within our 7 parish regions since our inception. But particularly, we concentrate advocacy for early education, meaning that we want to make sure that children have the best possible outcomes starting with birth all the way up to 4 or 5 years old, because we know that investment in a child's early education leads to greater outcomes and successful outcomes later in life. Back in the beginning of the pandemic, back in April of 2020, we were hearing the alarm bells from a lot of our providers throughout the region that centers were closing, families had nowhere to send their children in a safe place while they were still required to go to work, even during lockdown. And all of a sudden, there was this great need and this opportunity that came down via the federal government, which Rebecca will talk about more of those details, to access small business loans to help keep center doors open. But we all know that opportunities like this come with a lot of catches in the form of a lot of legalese, a lot of forms, a lot of requirements that are really hard to navigate alone, let alone you're trying to, manage your center, your staff, communication with your parents and families. And so the United Way reached out to our key partners that work in this field, Agenda for Children, who I'm sure many of you work with and have coaching relationships with, to help us get the expertise on what the need is around the region. And we reached out to our partners at Loyola University College of Law because they are known for standing in solidarity for social justice issues that go way even before for Katrina, helping folks with their road home programs. They are folks that are committed to community, and we knew that working with Loyola were natural partners. So starting back in April of 2020, we launched this program, which is called the United for Early Care and Education Program, to help center directors navigate the onerous process of the SBA's Pay Loan Protection Program loan forgiveness process, which is long and drawn out, and it's changed a bunch of times, which we'll go over in just a moment. And just making sure that you have the support that you need to keep your centers open, because we know that early education centers are essential to our economic recovery. And not just that you represent a section of small businesses that are primarily operated by women and primarily operated by women of color. And we don't want y'all to get lost in this very confusing time. So we're here to support you. We've been able to provide support through the first round of PPP loans, and now there's this opportunity for a second round of PPP funding and forgiveness that we're going to tell you a little bit about today. And did I miss anything, Rebecca? I think we're good. And if there's
pretty good.
okay, all right. So I'm going to pass it on to Rebecca, who's going to go into the nuts and bolts of how the program operates. And then we want to leave ample time for questions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jillian. So the reason why we're getting together today is because we do, thank goodness, have a long history of working well with the United Way, but also because the Paycheck Protection Program has changed so much. If you're not already familiar, the Paycheck Protection First Draw Program, which was issued in 2 rounds in 2020, when they opened the program initially earlier in the year, then later when they opened the program again and gave it more funding, those are all part of the PPP First Draw Program. As part of the Paycheck Protection Program Second Draw Program that opened up earlier this year and closes on May 31st. And if you have not already applied, please do apply, because funds are likely to run out before the program actually ends. So these programs have been authorized by Congress to grant loans to centers, as Jillian was just saying, that are potentially forgivable. So our goal is to get you to 100% loan forgiveness. And we do that by starting with initial meetings, where we kind of talk about your business, how your business runs, and what your business needs are, including staffing, where most of that loan money is going to go, how we're going to plan for what ratio of forgiveness we're going to be aiming for, and what percentages to spend that money in. Secondly, as the law has changed many times over the past year, and even over December and earlier parts of this year, including April, we're going to send you updates about any changes about how you can spend that money. So we're here to provide information and advice for how to spend that money in a compliant way. And yes, thank you so much, Jillian, for posting. I actually have a letter that I wanted to give that has a bunch of links and information about the SBA's program, the Small Business Administration's program. They run the Paycheck Protection Program. So when they publish regulations or guidance related to that program, it affects how everyone in the program is compliant. Oh no, I think I froze.
Oh no.
No, you're good.
You're okay.
I can't.
Oh,
okay.
There you go.
Now
sometimes, Rebecca, sometimes if you take yourself off video, it'll help a little bit. Oh,
y'all can see me. I can. Okay.
You're coming in and out.
Okay. My apologies. Okay. Let's see if I can get this to work.
Okay. So you should have screen sharing capability, and if you need any assistance with that, Rebecca, just let me know.
Thank you. Okay, no, I can hear you now. Okay, great. So I think my camera is a little bit wonky and probably won't be able to use that much more. I don't know if you guys can see me, but I can still see you and hear you. So I'm just going to go ahead and continue. Basically, the intent behind the programs with the lending is to help all the folks that have received this money get 100% loan forgiveness, which you may be skeptical of if you've been a participant in PPP1, which actually is required to get PPP second draw loans. So that being said, again, if you haven't already applied for PPP second draw loans, please do so as soon as possible. You can go to the SBA's website in order to get more information about how to find a lender and find a lender that will help you apply. Because of the history of discrimination in federal programs, over and over again, we've seen it. I think that's a couple of news centers were calling the PPP program the new redlining. It's unfortunate and it's pervasive. One of the early reports for the PPP reported that only 2% of the PPP funds overall went to persons of color, or people who self-reported as minorities on these programs. So I just want to say that for all of our program center directors, if you feel in any way that a lender is discriminating against you, or that they're not approving the right amount of funds, or they're redirecting you to another lender, or they're trying to charge a fee, if you feel in any way that your lender or the lender that you're applying for funds through is not treating you appropriately, we want you to let us know as soon as possible. We hope that these are just mistakes when these types of things happen with lenders, but we want to be here to advocate for you if we can in those situations. For that reason, and because sometimes discrimination can be so underreported, we do encourage you throughout the program to report your status if you're a business owner, if you are a veteran, if you are a person of color, because that helps give information to the federal government about how they're actually spending their money, which is also very important to us. We want to make sure that everyone has equal access to the money as much as possible. All right. So what I've tried to do is get some information and links, but I think my system is in overload and cannot handle any more uploads, but I'm going to go ahead and work on that. Basically, I wanted to let you know the intent behind the program and that our program has a three-pronged approach. As I was saying earlier, first, we meet with you to assess your business needs. Second, we start collecting information and materials to help compose your compliance folder. In the Paycheck Protection Program, you are required to turn some paperwork in, and you are required to keep some paperwork for 6 years in case of audit. That's a really long time. So we always encourage our centers, go ahead and save that information to the cloud, somewhere where it is safe and accessible, even if you're not in a physical location or in case of disaster. So I want to encourage you guys to, even if we're not able to help your center in this program, that you create a compliance folder and start from the beginning by putting all the materials from your application for PPP in that folder and build it out from there. So if you work with us in this program, we will help you do that. And finally, we will help prepare your loan application for forgiveness. So that's the three-pronged approach that we use, and we like to work very closely with you. If you have a director that you prefer us to work with, or an accountant that you prefer us to get information from, we're happy to oblige with those types of requests as well. All right, so I'm gonna work on trying to give you these links in the chat. If not, I'm gonna have to send you a PDF to all the participants in the program today after our meeting. So thank you for bearing with me with my technical challenges. Go ahead and hand that back off to you, Jillian. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I'm gonna direct us over to the application, which is hosted on our United Way site. But first, I'm gonna just go over some eligibility requirements. So let me just share my screen and bring this up real quick. Okay. Can everyone see my webpage, United for ECE application?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so we all know, we just a little purview of the program itself. It's a technical assistance program to help lift the burden of the loan forgiveness program, right? What we just want to cover right now is basic eligibility. To clarify, Rebecca said this earlier, if you have already been a participant in this program with us, with Payroll Protection 1, like the first round, you don't need to go through this whole second round for eligibility. You're already eligible based on your prior participation. However, if you were totally new to this conversation, this program is totally new for you, this applies to you. For basic eligibility, you need to be an early care provider that has a quality rating score of approaching proficient or better. You need to receive public funds that serve low-income children and operate in one of our service areas. So we serve 7 parishes: Jefferson, Orleans, Plaquemine, St. Bernard, St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, and Washington parishes. And you sincerely want help in maintaining or obtaining loan forgiveness via these programs and other programs or other grant opportunities that you've applied for. We help with some additional Stuff is, it's a case-by-case basis. So if there's some additional, opportunities that you've looked into, you just want a little bit of help, we offer that as well. We're going to give priority to providers that have received PPP loans and need guidance in loan forgiveness. And for folks that don't have a lot of capacity, like you don't have a CPA or a legal team or legal representation, we're here to fill those gaps. And let me see. So eligibility priorities. There's going to be, so once you apply, and I'm going to go over the application questions in just a moment, there's going to be a new participant orientation. It's going to be about an hour and a half long, where you're going to meet one-on-one with Rebecca, and you have to attend this for her to go over like the basic requirements of the next steps. So let me just clarify that the online application I'm about to walk everyone through is part 1. Part 2 is the one-on-one orientation with Rebecca, who will go into detail about all of the documents and expectations for the next round of application. So with that in mind, oh, Rebecca, I think I've turned it back over to you, and then I'm going to go over the website.
Just want to let folks know, after this first part of your application that you submit online, right after this part, you're going to receive a follow-up email confirming that we've received your application. Following that, you should be looking for an email that's coming from me. It is right here in the chat box. That is my email address if you want to save it or make sure those things don't go into spam. You could also receive emails from the United Way Early Care team, and their email address should be, I think it's from you, Jillian. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. Beautiful.
It's United for ECE at unitedwaysela.org, and I will put that in the chat as well.
Thank you. So those are the emails that you could be receiving, the senders you could be receiving emails from for confirmation that 1, you completed the first part, or 2, notification that you moved on to the second round of applications. The second round of applications will include me emailing documentation that we need to receive back in order to start the, oh no, I'm sorry that you have to run off. I hope the kids are feeling better. Unfortunately, it happens all the time. But basically, all the documentation I'm sending you is 1, to self-report all of the information about your loan when you received it and other information that will help me determine your compliance data. And 2, something called a limited representation agreement. I don't want anyone to be afraid of that term. I know that some lawyers use the term retainer to mean a dollar amount or a dollar amount fee that they need to stay on. That's not how we're using that term at all. We need just entirely an agreement for you to retain our advice and services. And we're offering the limited advice and services of information, advice, and compliance advice and assistance for PPP second draw. So I don't want you to be afraid of that retainer. Go ahead and read through it thoroughly. You do have to sign and submit a request for a retainer, which basically means you're going to sign, date, and then send over that retainer to me. That acts as an application for us to be retained by you. So nothing's set in stone, nothing's confirmed. If you decide later that you don't want to do it, that's fine too. But until we sign that agreement, it is not in full force and effect. So you can just let us know anytime if you feel uncomfortable with that in any way. If you have any other questions about retainers or generally representation in general, I can tell you, of course, all of your information as a client of the United for ECE program at the Loyola University College of Law in our law clinic. That is the lawyer and representation firm that is working with this program. So all of your information will remain confidential. We report statistics, of course, to tell funders how much has been forgiven in the program, how many loans, our participant centers are getting, but we aggregate that data. So all that is not linked to your identity in any way. Good morning, Ms. Lewis.
Hi, Ms. Lewis.
So that's fine. I'm actually on a Zoom as well, so that's fine. You can still keep your.
Okay. Hold on 1 second. Let me just see Ms. Lewis.
And the person that you're recommending. Tell me a little bit about them.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Glad to have people on it. And just as a reminder, this is being recorded. So if you missed an earlier part of this presentation, we will post a link for you to be able to get back in there and take a look at it. We'll send out an email for that later today. You also may have received an email from me, just as an FYI, just letting you know that you're possibly eligible for this program based on the number of registered UNET ECEs in the state of Louisiana and in these 7 parishes. And I've gone on way too long. Please, Jillian, take it from here.
No, that's totally fine, Rebecca. So I put this link in the chat. This is the link to the application itself. At the top of the screen, again, there's the priority and eligibility requirements. And I just wanted to walk through so folks get familiar with what this looks like and have an opportunity to ask any questions. So the first part of the application is basic demographic information and contact info. We want to know what your organization type 3 is. It a type 3? What level type center it is? What's your recent performance rating? And then we want to know what your enrollment looks like. This helps us get an idea of where are the gaps in access to seats. You know, are you serving mostly children birth to 2, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, etc. It gives us an idea of the landscape. We also want to know, prior to COVID-19, what did your enrollment look like? What did staffing look like? Were there any major date ranges where you had to close due to the pandemic? We want to know, do you operate more than one center? So we can know if you have multiple loan forgiveness applications out there. We also want to know if you receive CCAP funds, because that checks off the requirement that you serve low-income children. And most important, like a very important question is, have you received any first draw payload protection funds? Because one of the requirements or one of the barriers for the second draw PPP is that you need to have received full loan forgiveness for the first draw. And I know I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry.
You need to have spent your full,
Yes.
your PPP1 funds before you can receive PPP2 funds.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Spent down, not full forgiveness. My apologies. And again, if there's anything that I'm saying that's like confusing, please pop it in the chat or interrupt. Like, just let me know if there's any questions. We also want to know about any other funds that you've applied for, any EIDL funds or any other grants or loans received. And we want to know what's your tech savviness. Do you have access to the internet and a computer? Because a lot of the documentation that you'll need to gather and share with Rebecca will be digital, as we're in this COVID landscape, and a lot of us are physically distant in other parishes. And we also want to know, do you have any comments or reasons why we should prioritize your application for this program? We want to know, like, what are the challenges that you're facing and your staff are facing in operations of your centers? Like, what are the stories of your families that are coming to you in need of your services? So it's a pretty short application, but if anyone needs help with this, with any of these questions, like Rebecca and I are here to help. Again, this is part 1 of the application, and once you submit this, you'll get an auto reply email from the program's email address, which is unitedforece@unitedwaysela.org, and we will follow up with you based on your eligibility, if you've been accepted into the program, what your next steps are, and if you're not accepted into the program, we will provide an explanation and any resources we can provide to help support you on your journey. And I think, yeah, that is the application itself. And then Rebecca, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much. And like we said, that is part 1 of the application. It is hosted online on online form version, so hopefully it should be easy to use and navigate. The only information I think you'd really have to look up that you won't know off the top of your head is probably going to be the distribution of children by age before COVID and now. And what those differences are. You might need to look in business records for that. So you might need to know that before you apply. But Jillian, do you want to talk about basic eligibility? So right now the program center is designed for type 3 centers only, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So type 3 centers that have a quality rating scale of proficient or better and operate within the United Way 7 parish region. And I will bring that up again just so that we can have it in front of us.
And yes, this presentation should be available to attendees. We are recording it right now. So this is part of the reason why we want to have a robust Q&A. We want to be able to have discussions and talk with you and be accessible to you. We would really love to be in an in-person format, but for safety purposes, I think especially because we work with so many different childcare centers, it's likely unwise for us to meet in person with people who are going to go back to different geographic regions all over in different parishes. We want to make sure everyone is safe in this era. So yes, we'll go ahead and send out a link with a recording to this session as well.
And Loyola hosts information on their, they have a page on their website as well that has updated tools like the loan forgiveness calculator and some webinars from our first part of this program that are still very much valuable. So you'll find this on the application site as well under like the need more information about the program. You'll have a link here that'll take you over to Loyola's resource site. And Rebecca's email address is here on the site as well. And I'm going to add mine into the chat. And I want to leave room for questions.
Absolutely. And I just want to clarify with the Loyola website, we are starting the PPP2 or the second draw program after we do this intake. So everything's based on how we do timing for this intake. If this goes quickly, if we get a lot of people signing up early on, then we can start the program faster. But ideally, we would like to begin providing assistance by the first week of June, if at all possible. At that point, a ton of updates are going to be dispersed to the online Loyola system, because right now, most of those updates pertain to PPP1. So they do not include information about the second draw. But we will be providing a handout today via email at the end of this webinar that has more information and links to direct Small Business Association resources about PPP 1 and 2 and EIDL and or advanced EIDL and how that program is as well. Thank you very much for allowing me your time. What kind of questions do you guys have?
Well, actually, I missed one major thing, and I'm so sorry. The application opened on Friday, April 30th, and it runs to close of business Friday, May 14th. Just to give y'all a range of when this application, we have about a week and a half for folks to get their applications in. And again, if there's any questions about the application itself, please reach out. We are here to help. And just to give, like, I know Rebecca's going to go over these in your one-on-one orientations, but just to give you a little level setting of expectations, this is a long process. So once you start this program with us in June, it can go on for 3 to 6 months just to make sure that we are with you every step of the way. We're here in a technical assistance capacity. We are here to help. We don't want to add additional burdens on your center and your operations, but just know that, there's no question that probably hasn't been asked before. This is all about learning and supporting you and your work. So there is no question too small. And again, yes, so I just want to leave room for questions at this point. I know that Rebecca and I've talked a lot. We've shared a lot of information. So please, if anyone has any questions, we give you the floor.
Or if there's anything you want to know more about, like how the process works, what we ask for.
I have a question.
Yes.
And forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I'm still confused a little bit with the term loan. So I think you said that it's not a loan, but it says loan. So, and you're asking for forgiveness. So if you don't get 100% forgiveness, you will owe the SBA money. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that matters and determines whether or not we can apply. So
absolutely. And it really is, it's difficult because loans that are forgiven are deemed income. We know that's treated differently than some grants are as far as income, or they can be depending on your tax structure. And that is confusing too. It's called the Paycheck Protection Loan Program, but the loans can potentially be forgiven. That's also been confusing about the Economic Impact Disaster Loan Program, or the EIDL program, which works quite differently. It is not forgivable, has a much different forgiveness or much different use timeline as well.
Okay.
So that is a really confusing term, as a really good point to bring up. Is there anything else that we said that is confusing or that anyone would like clarification on? Okay, cool. And actually, thank you, Ms. Phillips. I think that's a good idea. Jillian, I think that as the organizer of the event that you get a copy of the email attendees, but if y'all could post that into the chat and just post up whatever your preferred email address is for communication, that way we can send directly to you after this announcement or this webinar. We can send you the materials from our orientation today, and we can also send you some resources. We don't determine eligibility for the loan. So I see a question from Alamir Hamed, and it says, should we share this information with other directors of type 3 centers, or have you all chosen who is eligible for the loan? So for clarification, we're not administering any loan whatsoever. What we're doing is providing legal compliance advice for folks who have received Paycheck Protection Program second draw loans. And for more on eligibility for who can take a second draw loan, I'm trying to see if it will work. I have a document here and I'm trying really hard to just get the links that I have saved here. There we go. Those at least went in, I believe. Okay. So that is more information about eligibility and who can obtain a second draw PPP loan. So the Paycheck Protection Program is administered by the SBA, the Small Business Association, which is a branch of the federal government. Basically, they're an administrative agency. They are authorized by Congress. So Congress authorizes the funds, authorizes the SBA to lend these funds and create this program, and they are who creates rules and regulations along with the Treasury Department about the PPP, about other SBA loans and SBA loan types. Basically, their administrations, or their administrative rules are the law for those programs. So to apply for a second draw PPP loan, you will have to have first already received a PPP1 loan, second, have spent all the funds from that loan before you would be receiving PPP second draw funds. And then, of course, anticipating forgiveness. So if you've already received a forgiveness result and you have not achieved 100% forgiveness for PPP1, they will likely not qualify you for PPP second draw. So if you've already worked with a lender for the PPP first draw program, if you like that lender, you can go back to that lender and work with them to see if you're eligible for second draw funds. If you don't like that lender, there's a huge list on the Small Business Administration's website for different lenders that are all authorized to help distribute this money. So there are much more narrowly tailored requirements for the second draw PPP loan. So go ahead and take a look at the website, see if you're eligible on that site. If you feel that you're ineligible, but you still want more information, you can always speak to your lender or a lender that's been authorized. So that's also available from the SBA website. So if you receive a PPP2 loan, or if you're applying for a PPP2 loan, you can apply for our program to provide compliance advice about getting 100% forgiveness, which of course is the goal. So that's really how we're structured. We don't provide any loans, but we do try to provide any information that we receive about state or federal grants, funding, other loans, other opportunities or scholarship opportunities for students, for center directors. We try to share everything that we can, and that's part of what we receive in newsletters from admins in the state, from Louisiana Department of Ed, et cetera.
I've just included in the chat the SBA's, or the government website for the Small Business Administration that has an overview of the Pay Loan Protection Program. Just provide some basic information. If you have not even applied yet for the loans, it'll just give you an overview of what it is. So we come in at the back end. So you've already applied for the Pay Loan Protection loans. You receive them, and now you need to achieve loan forgiveness. That is where we step in to make sure that you receive that loan forgiveness and that you do not owe any. We try to make sure that you don't owe any money back to the federal government and make sure that you are in full compliance for 100% loan forgiveness.
Thank you, Jillian. And I've just added a link for the Q&A that the Treasury Department has published about these programs, and also information about loan forgiveness. The reason why we exist, the reason why we have this program and that it's been working the way that it has, is because there are a lot of rules about how you can spend this money in order for it to be 100% forgiven. So if you like to, you can look at the Q&A about the program. Part of what we do is go over a basic structure about how you can spend the money if you receive PPP2 loans. We will cover that in the first orientation that we have for new centers coming on to the program. And then we'll talk more specifically with your center one-on-one about your business concerns, what your center may or may not be able to meet, and how we can mitigate those problems if we can. Also, I wanted to link here the economic injury disaster loan. The SBA launched a supplemental targeted advance for small businesses. This is for very small businesses with 10 employees or fewer. So if you'd like to, you can take a look. If that doesn't apply to you, you can feel free to share that link with other folks that might be eligible. I also wanted to just take a note and say too, the tax law changed as of last year. So that has also made PPP loan forgiveness now impacts your taxes potentially. So as we see this law growing and changing, that's why we've really come in and spent some time, especially on the front end when you receive those loan funds, to make a plan for how to spend that money so that you don't end up having to pay anything back at the back end of your loan. Typically for these loans, you have between 8 and 24 weeks to spend the loan funds, and you only can spend them on certain things. So we'd like to talk with you, as soon as possible when you get those loan funds to start that plan. And then back towards the end of your covered period, the time in which you have to spend the loan, we want to go through your documentation together and build a robust folder that has everything in it that you'll need in case you get audited in the future. So like Jillian said, it can be quite a process. It's going to feel a little bit like a pre-audit because it basically is. Everything that you're required to keep for the program, we want to put it in that folder. Everything you're required to submit for the program for forgiveness, we want to put it in that folder, including the loan forgiveness form itself, which has changed several times. And also, just because the tax law has changed so much too, I put a reminder in there, talk to your tax specialist, your CPA, whoever your person is that does that for your business, about employee retention tax credits, and see how, PPP1 funds, none of them that are reported can be used for the ERTC. So you want to make sure you talk to your tax specialist, and that's for 2020 and 2021. That is new. That changed in December of last year, and that has caused a lot of accountants to take a lot more time with processing your taxes and your tax returns. So if you've seen a delay with that, we know why it's happening. But so this is an opportunity to get really close with whoever is working on your taxes or whoever your tax specialist is.
Rebecca, could you share a little bit, like some stats from our first cohort of the program, just so that we can give y'all an idea of what we've been able to do?
Absolutely. I can't recall the exact number of clients right now. We actually have some centers that were accepted into the program, but never filled out their paperwork. So fill out your paperwork if we send it for part 2, or we won't be able to accept you. And this is why, because we're still getting that paperwork in from some centers.
So I have those numbers. I have that number. So we've been able to be in communication with 76 centers throughout our 7-parish region to provide them basic information about who we are and what we do. Of that number, we have partnered with the retainer agreement with 68 of those centers to date. And of those 68 centers, Rebecca, if you can give us an idea of how much loan forgiveness we've been able to achieve so far.
Oh my goodness, so far it's been over $500,000. But we're currently working on forgiveness for about, I think it's 3.6 million at this point. It might be a little bit higher than that. But we're working one-on-one individually. So far, every center that we've assisted has achieved 100% loan forgiveness. And let's see. Oh, this is probably what's causing my computer to crash, is my Excel spreadsheet is way too big. So my computer's freezing up a little bit, but I might be able to pull this information up. I'm going to stop my video to save valuable bandwidth. And hopefully that will allow this information to load. But yeah, at this point, it looks like we have 14 centers that have applied for loan forgiveness, or 13. And we've received results for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them so far. And I can tell you that the amount that has been forgiven has been over $500,000 with those centers combined that have received loan forgiveness. So, and I'm a little bit frozen here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't see. what's on your end, Rebecca. We
Sorry.
we just wanted to share that so that you have an idea that like your peers are participating in this program, and we're here to help, and that what we're doing is working, and we're here to track all of the changes to the SBA's eligibility, or the requirements, because it changes a lot and it's confusing to me. And so I lean on Rebecca and her research team to help me understand how this all works.
It certainly has changed a lot. And for every change, we create a new procedure. We create a new way that we're going to meet that challenge. So, and part of what we do is not just getting the confirmation that you have 100% loan forgiveness. Also, part of what we're doing is preparing you for any audits down the road. As you guys may be aware of, if any of you, came through Katrina era policies, you know that for some of those elevation lawsuits we've been involved in, that there's been a lot of funds from FEMA as well that they will come back and they will audit. Right now, they're not making it a priority for any loans below $2 million, but we have every reason to believe, because we've seen such strict enforcement and we've seen so many fraud allegations, that the OJA, OFA, that the Office of Inspector General and the Justice Department have gone after a lot of people for misusing funds for these programs. And right now, it's been pretty obvious problems, like people who lied on their application, people who made up businesses, people who made up records. Those are luckily pretty easy for these federal agencies to spot, because they can check so many different systems for eligibility and verify whether you've, lied or made a misrepresentation on your application. But going forward, we have every reason to believe this agency, like any other federal agency that gives benefits, has the right to, and likely will, go back and do auditing of any funds that they've distributed to ensure that you were eligible to receive them, that you spent them in an eligible way, and that you can prove it. So in order to do that, what we're doing is preparing long term for if they ever come back to you, you'll have an entire folder that you can give them and say, this is everything. This is every document that you've required me to keep. This is every document that was required of me when I applied. And it's all the proof that I have that I spent it in a way that you've told me I could spend it. So it's really to act as first, preparation now, second, to give forgiveness now, and third, protection for the future.
That was a great synthesis, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions before we close this morning?
And if you do, and you don't want to pop it in the chat, or if you don't want to talk to us today, I get it, because we're not requiring you to be on camera or use your voice today. This is COVID era meeting. You don't have to be in person. So we're not expecting to put anyone on the spot, but you can always send me an email. You can send Jillian an email, and both of our email addresses are in the chat, which we are saving. And thank you if you sent me your email address, because we will be sending a follow-up email on this too. Sorry, Jillian, go ahead.
No, that was it. I was trying to see if emails are in the chat. All right. Again, this is recorded. We're going to be sharing this out in follow-up to today's meeting. So if you have other center directors in your network that weren't able to join us today and you think that they would benefit from listening in on this and should apply, please share far and wide. We are working with a list of providers that we pulled from the Department of Education, but there could be some centers that we may have missed. There may be some folks that we need to be in contact with that we don't have their contact info. So we're looking to you to help us spread the word. Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I just want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. And again, we say it again, Rebecca and I are here for any questions you might have, and we are here to help you with the application anyway. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.